Carl Jung was a Swiss psychologist who believed that the way you handle money, whether you're hoarding it, wasting it, or terrified of it, is actually a mirror reflecting your deepest feelings about yourself. Jung famously said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and you will call it fate. This is why you might keep hitting the same financial walls, make the same financial mistakes and blame it on bad luck or a bad economy. It feels like an invisible force is sabotaging your progress, making sure you stay stuck in the same spot no matter how hard you work. So in this video, we're going to explore how to identify these patterns and heal your relationship with money, all from the philosophy of Carl Jung. Number 1. See money as your life energy. Jung used a specific word for the energy that drives us: libido. He saw libido as universal psychic energy, the raw power behind your creativity, your work, and your desire to get out of bed in the morning. In our modern world, money is the physical symbol of that libido. It's the raw psychic life energy you use to create, trade, and engage with the world. When you work, you're not just earning money, you're turning your time and energy from your life into something you can spend. When you spend money, you're releasing that energy back into the world. It's a constant rhythmic cycle of giving and receiving. A scarcity mindset happens when that cycle gets stuck. If you grew up feeling like resources were thin, or if you've been through a period of loss, you might start to treat money like a finite object that you have to protect at all costs. Jung would call this a construction of your psychic energy. Imagine your energies like the hand. When you're relaxed and open, you can pick things up, move them around, and create. But when you're terrified of losing what you have, you clench your hand into a tight, white-knuckled fist. The problem is, when your fist is clenched, you can't grab anything new. You're so busy holding on to the little bit of energy you have left that you stop being creative. You stop taking risks. You stop noticing opportunities. You're terrified that if you let go, nothing will come back to replace it. Healing your relationship with money starts when you realize that as long as you have your mind, your skills, and your ability to solve problems, you have the source of that energy within you. When you trust your ability to create value for others, you stop clenching. You start to see money as something that flows through you rather than something you need just to survive. To start shifting this, pay attention to your clench. When you have to pay a bill or something you need, notice if your chest gets tight or if you feel a sense of panic. That's your energy constricting. Just observe that physical sensation. Instead of thinking, I'm losing $50, try thinking, I'm releasing $50 of my energy to support someone else's work, and I have the capacity to create more. And finally, look at one thing you're good at, something that people thank you for, and remind yourself, this is my real wealth. This is the energy that creates the money. Number 2. Identify your financial shadow. Jung divided the human psyche into 2 main parts. First is the conscious mind, meaning everything you're currently aware of, like your plans, your logic, and your goals. The second is the unconscious mind, which is the vast hidden part of you that holds beliefs and patterns you aren't even aware exist. Shadow is that specific part of this unconscious where we store the parts of ourselves we've pushed away, like our deepest fears, our sense of unworthiness, or even a hidden fear of success. This process begins in early childhood. As you grow up, your family, your culture, and your peers taught you which behaviours were acceptable and which were unacceptable. For example, if you were told that being vulnerable was weak, you repressed your sensitivity. These traits don't simply disappear when you ignore them. They remain active in your unconscious mind and secretly pull your strings. Similarly, we all have the financial shadow. the hidden traits we hold regarding money and success. When you were a kid and you were conditioned to believe that financial success is linked to negative character traits, such as greed, corruption, or a lack of spirituality, your conscious mind will experience a fundamental conflict. While you may logically want to increase your income or achieve financial stability, your unconscious mind views that success as a threat to your identity as a good person. Because your unconscious mind is trying to protect you from becoming the bad person that you associate with wealth, it will influence you to make choices that maintain your current state of scarcity. This is why you might experience a lack of motivation when pursuing profitable work, or why you might feel an impulse to spend money as soon as you earn it. You aren't failing because of a lack of skill. You're acting out of a hidden psychological requirement to stay poor but virtuous. The most practical way to notice your financial shadow is through projection. You can't see these hidden parts of yourself directly, so your mind places them onto other people. If you feel judgment towards a wealthy person or irritation when someone spends freely, that reaction is pointing you back to something in you. It usually means the other person is showing a trait like ambition, desire, or confidence that you've told yourself you shouldn't have. To heal, stop treating these traits as bad and start seeing them as useful qualities you've been holding back from yourself. To begin, pinpoint a specific person whose wealth or financial behavior irritates you. List the exact traits you find repulsive in them. For example, they're selfish, they're arrogant, or they're materialistic. Look at that list and ask yourself, in what ways have I overcorrected to avoid being like this? For example, if you hate selfishness, you may find that you're incapable of setting healthy financial boundaries or asking for a fair market rate for your work. Honestly answer this very important question. What's the worst thing my friends or family would think of me if I became highly successful? This answer is usually the main thing keeping you stuck financially. It's the fear of what you'll lose if you actually become wealthy, like your reputation or your good person status. Once you spot these patterns, you start making actual conscious decisions about how you handle money. Number 3. Confront the money complex. In Jungian terms, a complex is a cluster of old memories and childhood beliefs that have knotted together over time. When something happens in your financial life today, like a drop in income or a large bill, this knot gets hit, and it takes over your brain. You stop responding logically and start reacting with old fear or shame from childhood. Most of these knots were tied during your childhood by watching how your parents handled resources. You didn't just learn how to budget, you absorbed their psychic inheritance. If your parents always worried about money, your subconscious learned that money equals anxiety. If they viewed wealthy people as evil, your mind now views financial success as a threat to your character. This creates a hidden sense of family loyalty. Deep down, you might feel that becoming wealthier than your parents is a form of betrayal, or that it will alienate you from your tribe. To stay safe and belong, your subconscious keeps you following a silent old contract to stay exactly where your family is. This complex also causes you to project your childhood needs onto the world. You might treat the market, the government, or your clients as if they were a parental figure. If you had a punishing father, you might see the economy as a cold, judgmental force that's waiting to catch you making a mistake. If you had an unpredictable mother, you might see money as something that nurtures you one day and abandons you the next. You spend your life waiting for the system to give you permission to succeed, much like a child waits for a parent's approval. To heal this, you have to practice disidentification. The moment you look at your bank account, instead of letting that feeling turn into a story about how you're a failure, label it immediately by saying, "This is my money complex talking." Next, remind yourself that your situation today is different from your past. You're not a child anymore, and you've more control than you did back then. A simple thought like, "This is my life now, not theirs," can help you come back to the present. Then challenge the hidden loyalty contract. Doing better financially is not a betrayal. It's simply growth. You can respect your family and still choose a different path. In fact, improving your situation can help break the old patterns instead of continuing them. It also helps you take back your sense of control. The market, your job, or the system aren't like parents. They're just neutral systems. Try to see them as things you can learn and work with, not things that judge or control you. This shift alone can ease a lot of fear. Finally, focus on action instead of reaction. When you feel triggered, don't wait to be perfect. Just take one small, steady step, like checking your account, sending a message, or making a simple plan. Each time you do this, you slowly break the old pattern and build a more stable way of responding. Number 4. Find your archetypes. Jung describes archetype as a universal pattern. While your complex is your personal story, like the way your heart races when you see a bill because you saw your parents struggle, archetype, on the other hand, is the psychological blueprint that exists in every human being, regardless of where or when they were born. These are universal roles, like the hero, the caretaker, or the ruler, that humans have been playing out for thousands of years, and most of our financial struggles come from being possessed by one of these roles without even realizing it. The most common role is the pauper. When the pauper is in charge, you feel like a victim of the economy, your boss, or your upbringing. You're convinced that wealth is a zero-sum game, meaning if someone else gets a big slice of the pie, there's automatically less for you. Because the pauper believes that resources are always running out, they focus entirely on short-term survival, waiting for a stroke of luck to change their lives. In this state, no amount of money feels like enough because the scarcity is in your identity, not in your bank account. On the other side is the miser. While the pauper fears not having money, the miser is terrified of losing it. This character treats every dollar like a shield to keep a dangerous world at bay. They hoard their resources, but the money becomes dead energy because it never moves or grows. The miser often lives in a self-imposed state of poverty, refusing to enjoy life or take risks. Then there's the profligate, the version of us that cannot seem to keep money no matter how much we make. For this character, having a high bank balance feels heavy or even dangerous, and they impulsively spend to buy a temporary rush of power today rather than build security for tomorrow, just to outrun a deep internal feeling of not being enough. Then we have the martyr, who believes that being broke is proof of their goodness. They equate wealth with greed, so they unconsciously sabotage their own success to stay spiritually pure. They undercharge for their work, they overgive their time, eventually ending up exhausted and resentful. The healthy, balanced state we're aiming for is the sovereign. The sovereign doesn't see money as a monster to fear or a god to worship. They see it as a tool to be managed. They understand that real value is generated from within, through their skills, their discipline, and their character. A sovereign knows when to save to create security, but they also know when to release money to create more value. The first step to being a sovereign is purely about noticing. When you deal with money, checking your balance or looking at a price tag, do you feel a tightness in your chest, a sudden urge to close the tab, a rush of excitement to buy something you don't need? Then give it a name, like, "This is pauper," or "This is miser." That small step creates distance. You're no longer caught in the reaction, you're seeing it. And once you see it clearly, it starts to lose its hold. You realise it's just an old pattern, not something you actually have to follow. Imagine your mind has a throne. Usually one of these shadow characters, the miser, the profligate or the pauper, is sitting on it, shouting orders. To be sovereign, you have to mentally ask that character to step down. Now that the seat is empty, step into it. And from this calm, empty place, look at the money again and ask yourself these two logical questions. Does this action serve my long-term vision? And am I acting out of a position of power or a position of fear? This is how you take back control, not by reacting automatically, and instead making a steady, conscious decision. Number 5. Use active imagination. Jung developed a technique called active imagination to bridge the gap between your conscious mind and your unconscious patterns. In this, you treat the different parts of your psyche as if they were real, independent people. Close your eyes and imagine that money is an actual person standing right in front of you. Don't try to force a specific image. Let your mind show you what it really thinks. Is it a cold, distant aristocrat who looks down on you? Is it a neglected child who's afraid to get close? Or is it a powerful, intimidating deity that demands a sacrifice? How this figure appears shows you how you currently relate to money. If it feels like a burden, you'll tend to push it away. If it feels like it's judging you, you'll likely feel guilty for wanting more. Once the image is clear, you start a dialogue. In your mind, ask this figure honest questions like, why are you staying away from me? Or, what do you need from me to feel safe here? The key is to wait for a response without judging it or trying to make it logical. You're looking for the truth of your unconscious, not a textbook answer. You might hear something surprising, like, I'm afraid if I come closer, you'll lose your soul. When you listen for the answer, you often uncover a hidden contract you made with yourself long ago. This might be an agreement to stay poor to remain pure, or a belief that having money means you'll be lonely. These contracts act like invisible walls that stop your progress no matter how hard you work. And by bringing these hidden agreements into the light of your conscious mind, you can move from feeling scared of money and avoiding it to dealing with it in a practical, healthy way where it doesn't control you. Number 6. Withdrawing your projections. Towards the end of his life, Jung became interested in alchemy, not to turn metal into gold. He was looking for a symbol for the human soul. He called this the philosopher's gold, a representation of the self, that indestructible part of you that stays valuable regardless of what happens in the outside world. The mistake many of us make today is projecting this gold onto our bank accounts. We look at a digital screen to tell us who we are. When the balance is high, we feel powerful like a king. And when it's low, we feel ashamed. By doing this, we give a piece of paper a job it was never meant to do, protecting our right to exist. Jung's point was simple. If you link who you are to your external environment, you're never going to be at peace. When the market dips or your income drops, it doesn't just feel like a practical setback, it feels like a personal failure. And when you feel that way, it's hard to think clearly or make good decisions. Withdrawing the projection is about recognizing that your gold, that is your skills, your character and your potential, is a fixed internal fact. It stays exactly the same whether you have $1 or $1 million. This doesn't mean you stop caring about money. It just means you stop letting it judge you. When you stop looking at your bank account as a reflection of your soul, things become clearer. You can start treating money as what it is, a tool. You stop reacting with fear and start acting with strategy. You still watch the numbers, but you no longer let them decide if you're allowed to feel like a worthy human being today. And that's our video. What did you think? Will Carl Jung's teachings change your approach to money? Is there anything you think he may have gotten wrong? Let's get into it in the comments below. And until then, I've been Dan, you've been awesome, and if you enjoyed what you saw or found it helpful, why not check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist? And for more videos to help you find success and happiness using beautiful philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.